Get your sunglasses ready. The Wraith, the baddest movie from the 80s that you have never seen. Or maybe you have. This movie has everything. Explosion, car chases, races, hot chicks, gangs, violence, boobies. I don't think I'm supposed to be saying that. If you've never seen the movie The Wraith, you need to watch it now. In fact, it's actually free on YouTube right now. I'm looking at you, Brandon, from Daily Drivers. Today we're talking about the coolest movie ever to grace the car world. We're talking about The Wraith. If you've never heard of the movie The Wraith, it's a movie that came out in 1986. I know this is different from the normal content that I usually make, but I've wanted to make a video about this movie for the longest time, and we'll get into why. It's a car movie from 1986 that actually has Charlie Sheen in it, who's actually killed off by a gang of road pirates or street racing gang, and he comes back as a car/spirit to kill them off and get revenge. Mostly because the leader of the car gang is now trying to do his girl.
You're mine, and I'll do anything necessary to keep it that way.
This car movie has the most iconic car of the day. It's known as the Dodge M4 Turbo Interceptor, and it was actually a twin-turbo, 4-cylinder engine producing 440 horsepower. Now, this car was never put into production, and when I was a kid and I saw this car, I was just blown away. And how does this relate to Hondas? The first time that I ever saw a Acura NSX, I was like, is that the car from the movie? When I saw an NSX, it was like a refined version of this Turbo Interceptor. If you've seen this movie, you know that it's pretty cheesy. Now, you may have seen other car movies like Fast and the Furious, Gone in 60 Seconds, The Italian Job. Those movies are kind of The Wraith is something that is entirely different. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's the greatest movie of all time, because it's not. It's a bit cheesy, and it's one of those movies that you can sit back and watch, and a lot of the scenes and the stuff that you watch, you kind of laugh at, but it's actually got some insane action, explosions, car crashes. And overall, it's a pretty halfway decent movie that you can sit back and watch and have a good time at. It's not going to change your life, but it is a cool car movie. As a car movie, it's very different. It's literally a ghost that comes back to take revenge. If you don't know what a wraith is, that's what a wraith is. It's an angry spirit. This guy gets killed off by a car gang, and the leader really wants his girlfriend, so he kills them off. And he comes back to kill them and get revenge. He shows up with this very futuristic, space-age looking car that is super low slung, has no mirrors on it, and it looks super slick. Even the paint color for the day was super interesting. So once this car shows up in the first scene of the movie, I know what you're all gonna say. Man, the fitment on this thing is pretty horrible. And you can even see as the car pulls off, it's got some really stupid body roll. But it doesn't matter, this is a movie we're talking about here. But you gotta admit, as a car guy, if somebody actually put the right set of wheels and slammed this thing on the ground, it'd be pretty sick. And for me, the Honda NSX is the closest thing as a body style to this thing that I've ever seen. And that's what made me get into Hondas in the first place. When I saw an Acura Honda NSX for the first time, I was like, wow, those are really cool cars. And then, of course, I learned more about Civics, Accords, CRXs, Preludes, and the whole lot. And that's what really got me into it, especially the fact that this car was a 4-cylinder and Hondas were 4-cylinders. So the way that the Wraith goes about killing off the gang members is he actually shows up to race them. Then what transpires then is obviously a car chase through the Arizona roads, kind of like a toge almost, which for its time is really mind-blowing. The action scenes of the cars actually driving is really good. It doesn't look like they're driving, 15 miles an hour and then it's sped up or anything like that. And then the Wraith, in the middle of the race, takes off and just takes off much faster than the other guy. And in the 80s, this was such a crazy cool concept. And by the time that the bad guy finally catches up to where the Wraith is actually sitting sideways in the road, and they crash right into them, sending them off into a very fiery death for most of the accident. Especially the first scene where they kill this guy off, the car goes down the side of a mountain in such a ridiculous way, in fire and flames. You're just like, It's pretty ridiculous. Then after the death of the first gang member, the sheriff shows up. And now the sheriff's like, who's the guy in the other car? I want to find him. We need to find this guy. He's obviously, murdered somebody. One person's dead, 2 cars were driving, so the police are now investigating. Later on in the movie, the police actually kind of corner the Wraith and try to capture and arrest him. Or the car, or the spirit, I don't know.
But we're still in pursuit of that black car heading northbound on Dragonfire Crossing. You got that roadblock set up? We're coming in at you at about 100 miles an hour. Watch your speed, slow it down, Murphy.
At one point, the car takes off, drives straight through a roadblock. Of course, it destroys everything, but then, the next scene, the car's fine. But then takes off and then disappears into the sunset. In the 80s, this was such a cool concept. Not only is this guy getting revenge on the people that killed him and took him, but he's getting away from the police too. There's so much to love about this movie. Now let's talk about the main villain, Packard Walsh, who is like a super douche. Like, you've never seen a guy this douchey before. I mean, the dude literally wears a sleeveless leather jacket and white jeans to a lake party. Somehow he maintains his power among the gang with violence and threatening to kill them off because they know he's already killed one dude. So they're like, alright, let's not piss this guy off. He's a little crazy. Other gang members include guys like Augie, Gutter Boy, and Skank, who apparently likes to do WD-40 or brake cleaner or something, getting high off of chemicals, and it's really weird. One of the other things about this car in the movie that made it so cool is the fact that the car had this sound to it.
Rex.
And it was very different than anything you'd ever heard. And it was, it's like an exhaust sound. It's got this weird timbre to it. It's very hard to describe. When the character Jake actually gets out of the car, or the car disappears and he turns into a motorcycle, which is a Honda, the motorcycle actually sounds the same. Another one of those things that sort of add to the character to this movie, to the style of it, that just makes it different. Of course, this movie isn't really based in any sense of reality, but you just want to put it on, sit back, and have a good time. Another thing that makes this car really cool is that when he goes to start off on another race with another gang member, the gang actually has a tool, what they call a digital radio killer, that if the person tries to run away, they'll zap the electrical system. Basically, they're trying to be like, no matter what, we're gonna kill your car with a remote radio control, and we're gonna come get you anyway. But when the gang member tells him to pop his hood so he can install it on his engine, he pops the back of the car. And you're like, what? This is definitely one of those things that during the time, it was just mind-blowing. As a kid, the car was just the coolest thing ever. In another scene from this movie, the gang member Rughead, who's like the brains of the operation, decides he's gonna leave the gang. And he's skedaddling, he's getting out of town, he's done. So he goes to leave the gang hideout. As soon as he's starting to leave, he sees the Wraith car drive into the garage and it completely explodes. And this was the coolest scene in the whole movie. Again, I'm telling you to get some popcorn, sit down for an hour and a half. Now, throughout the movie, you come across this character named Billy, who is Jake's brother. He works at a burger joint as the chef, where he's flipping burgers. And of course, Carrie works there, Jake's girlfriend, as a waitress, and so they know each other. But the cool thing is the way that this movie ends is that Jake actually reveals himself to Billy, letting him know his brother is okay. And he has a gift for him, too. And the gift is the car, and it's the coolest thing ever. And then Jake goes off to find his girlfriend Carrie, and they ride off on the motorcycle into the sunset. So that's pretty much how this movie ends. A very typical 80s happily ever after type of vibe. Whatever, it is what it is. It's not the greatest movie ever. It didn't really do that well in the theaters at the time, and also Charlie Sheen apparently got in trouble for doing this movie because he actually did the movie Platoon right after it, and the director was very upset with him. Also, Johnny Depp was the real-life boyfriend of the girl in the movie, and he was on set the entire time, as well as he auditioned for the part, but they chose to go with Charlie Sheen. Probably the best thing that happened to Johnny Depp. Anyway, this movie is so good. It's so cheesy and bad at the same time. You can't not love it. And not only that, it has one of the coolest, most futuristic cars you've ever seen. So this movie was the movie that really sparked my fascination with cars through the 80s. So again, if you haven't seen the movie, or if you have seen the movie, it's free on YouTube as of right now. Go watch it. This is where I'm going to end the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like the video, click subscribe if you haven't already. And if you want to support the channel, I got my Patreon and Big Cartel store down. Link is in the description. Help a brother out. It does help. And remember, with Patreon, if you have any automotive questions, you can get a hold of me, no problem, and I'll respond with an answer. So thank you guys so much for watching. Peace out. I'll see you in the next one.